now how to talk about compensation on your listing appointments. So we're going to spend time on that. And we'll spend as much time on that as you guys want to spend, because that, I feel like, out of everything that we're going to work on today, is probably one of the most important things. Hi, Aisha. Happy belated birthday. I didn't want to bother you. I heard you were in Mexico. How fun. I know I see you, but I don't hear you. So I'm just going to assume you can hear me. So compensation is one of the biggest issues that we're seeing on paperwork. Some of the other things we're going to go over, but making sure that your commission and compensation paperwork is filled out correctly is super important. Disclosures, making sure that your disclosures are done is super important. I've been to lately, good morning, Andrew, afternoon. I've been to two broker panel meetings, state-led broker meetings in the last month. And I have the HCAR one coming up in a couple weeks. And the one thing that's been consistent about what they've been saying, and they've had commissioners in the room, is complaints to the commission, particularly about disclosures of information, people not being properly disclosed to, not understanding what they're signing, or just not even being asked to sign paperwork to begin with. So all of those are issues, and they're issues out in the rest of the state. That's Maryland and Delaware. Both broker meetings had the same comments. And I know for a fact it's issues going on here inside our brokerage, because I'm getting a lot of calls lately from clients. I've gotten calls from attorneys. So it's no joke. It's a big deal. So I want to make sure you guys are understanding and we're going through this. So I'm going to open the loop. I created a loop template with all the forms in there. And the forms follow, the order of my forms should follow pretty closely our listing checklist. So there is a checklist in the Hyatt and Company folder. It is called the the MAR listing checklist 1225. That is the most up to date, but Amanda's going to be updating it again today because I noticed there was something missing from it. That should be on there. So there will be a new updated version, but as of right now, it's the MAR listing checklist. It's MAR because there is a PA. There's a PA checklist. We soon are going to have a Delaware checklist, a GCAR checklist. So it's MAR specifically for the Maryland realtor forms. Okay. So one of the first things you want to do, and this is how I always would start my loops, is I print this out, or I keep a printed out copy and I go straight down this list and make sure that I have everything in my loop that I need in my loop, right? Now, obviously, some of your different properties that have wonky things going on, it's not going to be on this list. This isn't, by no means can it be all inclusive, but we tried to make it as inclusive as possible for the paperwork.
That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Charles County. So based on this one I actually sent out the right form addenda. Then I went to chat GPT and said, hey, is there any other addendums out there? And it mentioned the military, which near his property there is a base not too far from it.
Military.
Yeah, but when I tried to pull it up, I couldn't pull it.
So Maryland Realtors. So you can always double check forms, local forms on Maryland Realtors. Once you log in to Maryland Realtors, it gives you all of the local forms for every local association. So that one wouldn't necessarily be required for all properties. So it wouldn't be the required local addendum for Charles County would be the one that is on here. But part of this too, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm by no means am I picking on you by saying this next statement, but I'm going to use it as a teaching example. We as realtors, when somebody comes to us and says, I want you to list my property and it's in East Timbuktu, you're like, yes, I will. I would love to. And my question to you is, do you know real estate in East Timbuktu? Because if you shake your head no, and you say, oh, no, I don't, then your code of ethics that you agreed to with the Real Estate Commission and with National Association of Realtors, right, says you will represent the public truthfully, honestly, and with experience and expertise. So if we're listing and selling property in an area, this goes for Deep Creek. This goes, which is Garrett County. This goes for Ocean City, right? And out or on the Eastern Shore. It goes for Charles County, Calvert County. It goes for Harford County. If you don't know that area and the issues and the things that need to be disclosed in that area, then you either need to ask somebody that works that area regularly, or it might be a good one to refer out, right? For those reasons, because failing to disclose, for example, that the property is within a certain distance of a military installation could possibly make that contract voidable by the buyer once they are disclosed that fact too. And now who's going to be upset with you? The seller, right? Because the sellers, you're going to be in a contract. The buyer that could be voidable possibly by the buyer all the way up until the day of settlement if they're never given that disclosure. In Deep Creek, you have disclosures about rental properties, short-term rental properties. You have disclosures about sprinkler systems. You have disclosures about fracking mineral rights under the ground. So if you don't know Garrett County real estate, you should not be working Garrett County real estate. Does that make sense? So I'm not picking on you. I'm just using that as a perfect example because, we can easily get ourselves in hot water for failure to disclose. And remember, your job is to disclose material facts, right, to potential buyers before or at the time of making an offer. So making sure that you're up to speed and understand and know all the material facts for that particular property and area is really important too. Whether it's the National Superfunds list, which that addendum probably should be on. Oh, it is National Priorities List, Superfund site disclosure, solar panels. The other one is the one that Baltimore County created an addendum for, which is the power line project. Hi, Cindy. So those sorts of things, right? So knowing whether your property is in a proposed power line route for this power line project that's going from all the way up by the PA line in Maryland's kind of Baltimore County, all the way down through like Carroll County, and I don't even know how far it goes. So there's a big wide range that's impacted, right? And that's going to be an optional addendum disclosure that we could never possibly fit all of them on a checklist. That's why keeping up to speed, coming into sales rallies, coming into training classes like this is really important because that's where you're going to learn this stuff to make sure you're staying up to date on. But even like that one, every county has so many additional addendas that going in and Maryland Realtors is a great resource into that. You log in and in their forms section, you can look at not only the state forms, but all of the local association forms as well. Yeah, but that's a great question. So that's where you would find it, download it and then load it into your loop. All right.
That loop that you have in there, is that a loop that you guys have provided, or do we have to pull all these documents into?
So yes, no. So this is mine that I created myself for training purposes. We could create, we had a listing template loop at one point.
We did.
Okay. We can work on creating that.
And
Okay. Yeah, there was one where when they would go to create a new loop, if they would pick listing, they would have the option of loading the listing template loop with those forms in. But we could also just create it as a side folder that we share with everybody, a listing template. Yeah, that they could pull all their listing forms from.
would we leave out like the county?
Yes. Yeah. You wouldn't do all of that. It would just be the requireds, I would say.
Not missing any other.
That's the only one that I've seen so far. But thank you. That's a great question, Belinda. So your transaction case sheet, is the next one in there. This is really important, guys. This is for internal tracking purposes. We have to have this information on file as a brokerage. In the event, God forbid, something happens to you or you're out of the country and you can't communicate with us and we need to jump in or step into your file. The other thing on that I'll note is when you have an active transaction, please remember you are required, you signed and agreed to this we've seen this a lot lately in your policy and procedures, that you will assign another agent. You will work with and identify another agent in the office that has agreed to assist your clients with that transaction while you're out of town. Okay, that's really important. Your clients cannot be left in limbo without somebody there to help them. If you have a settlement that's occurring while you're out of town, your responsibility is to attend all of your settlements. You're the representative for that client. If you're going to be unavailable or out of town for settlement, you have to coordinate with another agent in the office for them to be available to do your final walkthrough. No buyer should be buying without a final walkthrough, and to attend settlement on your behalf as their representative. Does that make sense? And by signing the listing agreement and by signing the buyer rep agreement, the important thing to remember is when a client signs that listing agreement or that buyer broker agreement with our brokerage, who is their representative? Who are they signing that agreement with? With me as Tina Hyatt, the broker, right? And in that agreement, there's verbiage that says all agents that work in our brokerage are their representative by default. Make sense? So any one of you can step in and assist a client for another agent in the brokerage as buyer agent representative or as seller representative. Yes. So it's not unique to our brokerage. It's the Maryland forms, like agency. That is how agency works. What is unique to our brokerage is the culture of collaboration. Because in other brokerages, and John Taylor will tell you this, the brokerage he came from, he started looking for another brokerage when he started advertising another listing from within his brokerage on social media. Not like, hey, this is my listing. Like, another new gorgeous listing by XYZ brokerage. Call me for a showing or details or information, right? The listing agent, who was a listing agent in his brokerage, literally hunted him down and ripped him a new one. Yes, for sharing and marketing and going behind his sign, trying to poach his listing. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like this, I'm just trying to bring a buyer. I'm just using, like, this is the brokerage's listings. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything by that. That's the culture in other brokerages. And so that is unique to our office. But the law is the law. Agency is agency. Every listing belongs to the broker, not to that agent. The agent is a designated representative of the broker, as are representatives are all of the agents within that brokerage. That's why if you have a listing and Cindy ends up with a buyer that wants to buy your listing and she has a signed buyer rep agreement, it becomes dual agency, right? With me as the dual agent, each of you as designated agents within the brokerage.
I haven't been able to also, it's like when I'm out there and I'm grievance for the state, so I'm like, oh, serious? We might know, but this is the house. It's like, this is home. Like,
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So within the same brokerage, they're coming to the grievance committee. Wow. And they don't, because there's not supervision. There's not training and education. It's just not there.
So
within the same brokerage.
Even going to the broker
because
first.
because they're so big.
Yes. Yes.
Because y'all spoken to the broker. Okay, well,
Right. It seemed like that would be.
And they're probably like, I don't know who my broker is, or we have to, yeah. And some companies, you have to pay a fee
To talk to the broker.
to ask a question of your broker. You guys know how rich I would be today if I had that same fee? Man. I wouldn't even need to be here right now. But, and in that case, like, the brokers are incentivized not to teach, because if your people have to pay you to ask a question, I make more money by the more questions you have to ask. Like, that seems absolutely backwards to me.
Agents don't know.
Other ways.
And then they get into a transaction, and then they're, they haven't.
Mhm. Yep.
That's
Yep. Yes. And that's the biggest thing. You know, I was in these broker meetings that I've been in, the Delaware one, and somebody brought this up. In Delaware, we're sitting in this room, and it's in a clubhouse of a golf course. So it tells you how big the room was, right? And there were maybe, I don't know, Amanda, what do you think? 200 people in there, tops, 150?
I would go like lower.
Lower. Okay, I'm really bad at guesstimating.
Like
So 150. And one of the broker, you know, we're all talking about broker supervision. We're talking about the issues in the industry, and, you know, the issues with agents not understanding and not knowing what they're doing, and da-da-da. And somebody raises their hand and asks, how many brokers are there in the state of Delaware? And what did they say? Like 1,800 or 1,300?
It was, I think they said something along that.
No, it was like a big number.
1,400.
Yeah.
Right. 1,400.
And then they were like, and look around this room. We have maybe 1/14 of whatever of the brokers in the state in this broker summit education day. Like, that's the problem, is there, and how do you, yeah, so don't get me on my soapbox. But anyway, okay. Case sheet. So the case sheet's really important for a number of reasons. One, we need to make sure we know what kind of lockbox is on that property. But guys, please always be filling in center lockbox here. Combo boxes really should not be used. If they are used, we absolutely have to have the code to the combo box.
I just talked to our agent wasn't answering.
And it was a combo. Yeah. See, I don't even know if our errors and omissions protects you if you put a combo box on a property. So I would love for you to be letting me know
When it's a combo.
who's using combos. Yeah.
Oh, I can start with- No, you won't like it.
Yeah, I'm sure. So this information needs to be filled out, right? So we'll move on from that. That's clear and obvious. Okay. Your listing agreement, the exclusive right to sell residential brokerage agreement. The first thing I can say, if I say nothing else, page 1 all needs to be completed. Like, I can't tell you how many times we have these get turned in with seller's name and no contact information for the seller, no mailing address, no phone number. We have to be able to contact that seller, guys, on your behalf, or on the brokerage's behalf. The date at the top, this is the date that this is being executed. The listing agreement's being executed. It's not necessarily the date that it's going active in the MLS or anything else. That's where you have your effective date. Your contact information all needs to be filled in here. Broker, Hyatt and Company Real Estate, office address, listing agent, right? Make sure your information's filled in and it's correct. Hyatt and Company Real Estate is the broker that they're asking for here, not Tina Hyatt. The property known as, that's the full street address, 123 Maple Street. Is it fee simple or is it ground rent? This one's really important, guys. If the property is ground rent, it needs to be disclosed as such on here. Okay. If you get a contract ratified as fee simple because it was marketed fee simple, there was no ground rent addendum, and it's ground rent, that seller, by signing a fee simple contract, has now legally agreed to redeem that ground rent on or before settlement and transfer title fee simple. Okay. So accuracy is super important. All right. This is one of the first places I'm going to go over accuracy with you. And then the agreement dates. So the agreement shall be effective on, it can be the same day you're getting it signed. That's fine. 1 year it expires from this date, but you need to make it clear someplace else on the MLS form, in the listing agreement, wherever, when all marketing on this property will begin. When it's going to go into coming soon status, when it's going to go active on the MLS, all of those dates need to be outlined. And I'll show you, there's an MLS addendum that now is where you can dictate when the marketing for that property will begin.
That's new.
The MLS addendum,
Yeah.
it's been about a year now, probably.
So this date is not the date that. This
No.
date right here.
It's the date that the listing agreement becomes binding and in effect. So it would be today, the day that you're getting it signed. But now you're gonna put the date that it goes active, marketing to begin, coming soon on MLS, whatever that is, in a different spot, on a different addendum. But you want your agreement binding and active as of today, right? The effective date of the listing agreement starts when we're signing it. Yes. And then it can be for no longer than 1 year. The longest term of a listing agreement that you can have is 1 year max by law. Termination paragraph. Please don't leave this blank. If this is blank, your listing agreement is completely unenforceable. It's not even legally binding. So you have to have written in terms on your listing agreement, on your buyer broker agreement. Also, this applies. So it should be something, it needs to be clear. It needs to dictate that it can be terminated by either party with written notice or upon written notice, or, and then how many days from receipt of written notice. On your listing agreements, I would recommend 30 days at least. You could do 2 weeks, but it shouldn't be immediately, shouldn't be 24 hours, 48 hours. Why? Can somebody tell me why? Why would you want 30 days on here for a listing agreement termination?
Because it can't take someone, you might procure it or something. Like, I mean.
Yes and no. There's another paragraph that protects your compensation, but it's to keep them from, because what happens when somebody decides to sell their house, right? What do they start to do? Tell everybody, right? They start, oh, we're selling the house. We finally decided to do it. We're pulling the trigger. We found another one, right? And then now all of a sudden, their long lost distant cousin that's like 8 times removed, who they have never even met in their life, great auntie says, oh, well, why didn't you list with Hunter? Don't you know your cousin 8 times removed is a realtor? You should have to keep it in the family. We need to keep it in the, right? This is the stuff that happens. Or somebody at church or something, right? Everybody knows a realtor. So they start talking, and now all of a sudden, oh my gosh, you're right. Oh, I totally forgot. Didn't remember that Cindy told me like 15 years ago that she's an agent. So, and then what do they want to do? They want to cancel. You've gotten this signed with them. You got it signed like 2 weeks ago. They're going active in 4 days. Photography's done and paid for. It's all loaded up in the MLS. It's ready to go. Your signpost is installed. This has happened. It has happened to agents in our office. And then they call you and they're like, Cindy, or they don't even call you, right? Because they're too scared to pick up the phone and call, and they do this, right? And they text. And this constitutes written notice. Please know that, effective immediately per the termination agreement in our contract, we're requesting to terminate the listing. We're not going to be going active with you, right? And you've spent hundreds of dollars in marketing to get it ready. So
I was laughing at my church, I'm always putting out something.
Yeah.
With holidays, Mother's Day,
right.
I give them a gift, but I put my card in there and everything. So one is fine for the team here, just for them to explain what's in this area. And she's oh, when you do, you have to bring such and such. But people like, okay, I don't even know what I didn't even know what I'm eating.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you want this to read something to the effect of agreement to terminate 30 days from receipt of written notice by either party. Notice I didn't say the word within or, right? Because within means, okay, well, what is within? 1 to 29, right? Or 1 to 30. So please don't use the word within. Agreement to terminate 30 days or whatever amount of days you feel comfortable with from receipt of written notice by either party. Make sense? Okay, good. Listing price, obviously that's clear. It cannot be TBD. Also, the active date, no dates, effective date, termination date can't be TBD. It has to be real dates on the calendar. Dollar amount has to be a real dollar amount. They can change it later if they decide to change it. You can do a listing change of status addendum to change the price or strike through it and initial it, whatever you want to do, but it has to be an actual dollar amount. Showing instructions can be blank. That's if they need something specific or some special terms that they want on there. Marketing. This is the paragraph that gives you, and so notice it says broker is authorized to and shall market the property on the MLS, installing a sign, photography, lockbox. We're bound by bylaws, policies, procedures, rules, and regulations. Seller, upon execution of this agreement, seller and broker shall establish the date and status upon which property will be entered into the MLS by executing the MLS disclosures and residential options form. Yeah, so I'm not going to read all of that, but notice it lets us put it on our website, internet websites of our salespersons affiliated with the broker, any other internet website that gets syndicated out to, print media, any available MLS programs. So yeah, that's what gives us permission to market the property, right? Office exclusive. If the property is not going on the MLS, the seller doesn't want it on the MLS ever. They want it to be so, they want you to find a buyer and bring a buyer yourself through your own internal marketing, either through agents within our brokerage, ACAS, or your own investor network, but they don't want it on the MLS for whatever reason. They have the right to make that decision. They have the option to say they don't want their property marketed on the MLS. They have to initial in this box saying we may not market the property on the MLS at all. They have to acknowledge that they're limiting their buyer pool by doing that. And it may possibly have an impact on the sales price of their property. Make sense? And then on that MLS disclosure and options form, they're going to initial again that they don't want it to go on the MLS ever. All right. Any questions on office exclusive? Because we're seeing these pop up more and more, I feel like.
You still have to enter them into the MLS.
Yes. Thank you. No, yes. Even when it goes, like, when you
Even
take
once
the
you start
listing,
taking-
you should put it in the, you're supposed to put it in the MLS and enter it because that's the data pool, right? That's where we get data from. You put it in the MLS, you check off office exclusive. There's an option in there to check office exclusive. And then it's only supposed to be visible. Well, but I believe it should be visible to our agents in the office when it's an office exclusive. Yes. This is if they don't want the property to be marketed on the internet. They have to initial one or the other. If it's going out on the internet, it's going out to all the syndicated sites, Zillow, all of the things, leave this blank. You don't check off anything here. The next one, you do have to make a selection, one or the other. They either authorize or do not authorize the display of unedited comments or reviews of the property and the display of an automated estimate of the market value. And that's an option in the MLS when you're entering it into the MLS. If they've said no, they don't want those features, you have to check that off in the MLS.
And that's that.
I've heard it doesn't stop Zillow from syndicating it, but I've also heard it does. So I've heard different
in the MLS,
things.
like
To not allow, no, not syndication, to not allow an automated estimate of value, a Zestimate. So I've heard that on sites that have an automated estimate, if you check off no in the MLS, they don't want that it will not syndicate them to those websites. Yeah.
One always check that or whatever, and it usually just puts in what I have listed.
Oh, does it? So it turns off the estimate, but still puts it out to Zillow.
Yeah, it just turns out it usually.
So you always have your sellers say no to not put a Zillow, an estimate?
It,
Yeah, you check it off.
Because the good thing about sometimes with the estimate, if you go into like, not in our Zillow that we go in, but if you go to the consumer side of Zillow, I keep that app on my phone. It will tell you basically how you should write your offer or how to bid as well. Like it'll say, if you're here, you have
Yeah.
a chance of it, like here, and sometimes that can help me like pull different things. And then also as a listing agent, when I look at things like that, it helps me sort of kind of list and like state my case as to, hey, we don't want to list at the top because we need people to compete for it. So
Right.
Zillow is really helpful on the consumer side, but I think I've had one person ask me not to do that.
Okay.
And it is because she was getting divorced too. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Coming soon status. So this is where if the seller wants it to go into coming soon status first, you're gonna have them initial here that it's gonna go coming soon on the MLS. And then you do have to, on that MLS form, put the date that it's going to go active on the MLS. That needs to be in writing, agreed to by the seller. We can't ever just make a property active on the MLS without somewhere them indicating and agreeing this is the date it's going active on the MLS. Seller concessions on the MLS. This is the first one that I want to touch on with compensation. A lot of people still, for whatever reason, think that seller concessions equals commission. It does not. It does not. Has nothing to do with commission. So please remove seller concession from any connection to commission, okay? Seller concession is closing cost help, buyer closing cost help, right? So sellers have the option of you being able to advertise on the MLS. Yes, the seller will consider seller concessions, closing cost help, or no, they won't, okay? So if the seller's like, sure, with the right offer, I'd consider paying buyer closing cost help, great. They're going to check off, yeah, you're going to check off, yes. They're going to initial it. In the MLS, when you enter in your listing, you're going to check off, yes, seller will consider seller concessions. Doesn't mean they're guaranteeing that they're going to pay it, right? There's no guarantee here. It doesn't say, yes, they are definitely giving it. But it says, does the seller want to signal that they will consider offers requesting concessions? Yes or no? Make sense?
So if you start off.
Well, my recommendation would be put yes. I mean, unless you know that they are so tight, like on their payoff. Like if what you're advertising, what the property's listing for versus what they owe on that property, they are super tight in being able to just break even, right? And they have no wiggle room. Okay, maybe you say no, but is there a possibility you might get multiple offers and sell over list price, or they might go higher and ask for help back? So I would say don't restrict and limit yourself or limit your seller. I would keep your buyer pool as wide open as possible in the beginning. Doesn't mean they have to take that offer if somebody submits an offer asking for closing cost help. But by saying no, you could automatically be reducing down and limiting your buyer pool just by saying no. Because if there's a buyer that needs some help, some closing cost help, and if you get no other offers and your property's sitting on the market, why would you not take any offer you can get, right?
Especially if you don't have it listed at the very top,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? And somebody may offer $8,000 over and they need $8,000.
Right.
But you've
just said no.
Yeah.
I mean, a good buyer's agent will know how to submit that offer and talk and coach, talk that through with you and really sell their offer. But you've got we just talked about, right? You've got a lot of uneducated, unskilled agents out there. they just look at that and they see it says no, they're not entertaining it, and they move on to the next property. Consent to discuss other properties with buyers at seller's open house, yes or no? So the seller either authorizes or does not authorize broker, AKA our agents in our office, to discuss other properties with buyers at seller's open house. Couple things on this one. First of all, discussing other properties, how this looks in practice. You have a buyer that comes in, they walk the property, they look at the house, they absolutely love it, but they're like, you know what, Belinda, we love this. It would be perfect. However, it has only 2 bathrooms and we have 5 teenage girls. We have to have 4 bathrooms, right? Like that's a non-negotiable. 4 bathrooms, non-negotiable. We were really hoping maybe there was a spot to add another one, but it's clear there's not. So this house just won't work for us. Depending on how this is checked off, Belinda at that open house can either say, I totally get it. I completely understand. No problem. However, there might be other properties that could fit your needs. I can't discuss those with you right now. If you want to leave your contact information, you know, I'm happy to reach out to you and connect with you after this open house to see if I can help you. Right? If they say no, she can't discuss other properties. If they say yes, she can discuss other properties, then she might be able to say, you know what, I totally get it. I completely understand. However, I'll tell you this neighborhood, these are all 3 bathroom homes. Like all these homes have the same floor plan. There is another community down the street where those houses are a little bit bigger. They have 3 and 4 bathrooms, some of them. I know there's 2 on the market right now. You know, I'd be happy to schedule an appointment to show those to you if those would work better for your needs, right? But if they said no, she can't even have that dialogue. It has to be after this open house. I can reconnect with you and I can talk a little bit more about your needs. Hi, Amanda, how often do you see no on here? It depends on the
Like
agent.
25% of the time?
And what I would say is 25% of the time, it's probably the same agent. A lot of like the same agent, all of their listings are no. I think because they don't understand, because we have 100 agents, 105 agents in the office, just like I talked about the brokers. How many of us are sitting in this class right now? And then we have, you know, Aunt Drew online. So you get agents that don't know that don't do a lot of listings and start taking listings, and they've never come to a listing class and they don't understand what this means. So when a seller asks them, they're like, oh, you know, you can just say no, don't worry about it. Like we won't talk about another property while we're at your open house, because they don't understand what this means, right? The other point on this, how many of you in here have held or have had other agents hold open houses for you, or you've held them for other agents' listings in the brokerage? Several of you in here, right? How often are you asking the listing agent, did the seller authorize us to discuss other listings while I'm at your open house? Never. You guys need to be.
Well, you
Okay.
think that probably the person that has no would probably be the person that's.
No, it's not,
No,
because that's the person that doesn't understand why it's no. I guarantee you. I
No, mean,
guarantee
honestly,
you.
with me, I never check no anyway,
Right.
because I just feel like
But
we're savvy enough, I don't really ask anybody, or I don't effectively communicate that either.
Right.
It's a thing.
right, that they would say yes. Yeah. So, and that's where we have to be careful too. That's where we're getting ourselves in trouble, is by automatically, when we're filling out and we're assigning initials to our forms, where we're getting, you might be hearing this in the grievance, where we're getting ourselves in trouble is because, as Cassie just said, and Cassie, I'm not picking on you, when Cassie's going through and assigning where these sellers are going to initial, she selects these to seller initial and deselects these. What did she just do?
She
Made the decision for the seller. Didn't even give them an option or a conversation to be had around it, right? So that's really important. Yeah, go ahead.
Other property.
right? Yeah, you could put it you could put it in there.
What do you mean?
Yes, exactly. Please, next time you come to class, bring a friend. If everybody brings a friend or two each time, our class sizes will grow. Yes, so that's really important. So if you're holding an open house for another agent and you're not the listing agent, please ask, what does your listing agreement say? Can I discuss other properties at the open house? If you are the listing agent, please tell, right? We need to start to get in the habit of that. Grant and release. This is what gives the seller gives the brokerage permission to use their data, use their property, the photos, all of that to list and market their property. Home security systems that record audio. Guys, this one is super important. It is illegal in Maryland to record audio or even to listen to audio conversations through recording devices, whether it's recording it or not. This is Ring, Alexa, Google, all the things, right? Blink cameras, Nest cams. Every property has them all these days, I feel like, or one of them. It is illegal for sellers to record. They have to initial this. But guys, please make sure you're going over the paperwork with your clients. Please make sure you're not just sending it out through dot loop for them to sign. Their number one argument when they call and complain or they hire an attorney or whatever is they never even explained to me what I was signing. They just sent me the paperwork and told me to sign. Right? Even though, I mean, there are some protections with that, but if that's what you do and that's how you're doing it the first time, every time, you're opening yourself up to liability. And I recorded that. So it's documented that I adequately supervised each of you. All 7 of you.
Agents are not taking this paperwork, explaining this paperwork to them.
No, they're loading it up in dot loop, loading it up for signatures, shooting over a text. Hey, Cindy, it's Tina. I just want to let you know, I just shot you the listing paperwork for you to take a look at. Go ahead and start signing it. If you have any questions, let me know. And that's what they're doing.
Oh.
A better way to do it would be, hey, Cindy, it's Tina. I have the listing paperwork put together. Is there a time tonight that you have that we can hop on a Zoom to go over it while you're working on signing it? And I can answer questions as they come up. And I can record it, right? Now they can't say, oh, she just sent it to me. So actually, we did a Zoom together and I have it recorded, right?
Go to my listing appointments with 2 separate.
Yes. On your presentations,
On
your
my
listing
presentation.
presentations? Yes,
Yeah,
thank
like,
you. And you
my
should.
initial one is a quick, but I'm usually having a listing appointment for like 2 hours because
Yeah.
I'm going through all of this paperwork and every disclosure. And I
Because,
leave it with them and I highlight and
yes,
basically
you should.
initial the stuff and then, I take it back and then I load it up. And when I send it over in document, I even send an email with what I get in document and with a quick synopsis. This is what we talked about at your listing appointment, ... If you have any questions, yes, we can jump on the phone, whatever,
Right.
or, any questions. And
Yep.
usually it's basically somebody like, oh, you have me signing in both of these, which one? And I'm like, oh, let me pull it back. But I don't know. I didn't always think about you all in the long run as well. And I never want to be in front of a grievance.
Neither do I. Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah, you can't do it within your own office. So yes, please make sure you're going over the paperwork with your clients. Fair housing, I'm not going to go over that. You guys take fair housing classes. The seller agrees by hiring us to abide by all federal, state, and local fair housing laws. What I will say here, and it is in this paragraph, and I've had 2 calls about this recently. Love letters. Guys, love letters are not allowed. So your buyers cannot send love letters. Your sellers cannot accept them. Belinda's like, what is a love letter? I'm glad you asked. A love letter is where the buyer submits a letter talking about how much they love this house and how much they have to live here because this is the house, their dream house, where they want to raise their kids and they're gonna breed dogs and they're gonna whatever, chickens and blah, 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 right? And they gush about to try to get their offer accepted. Sometimes they even include a photo of their family or themselves. You can hopefully see why this could be a fair housing nightmare, right? Please don't. Goes in the trash. It should not ever get to your seller client or your buyer. If your buyer says to you, please, Millicent, please send this letter over with our offer. We've got to have this house and da, 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 da. No, you have to tell them. It would be an ethics violation and a possible fair housing violation for me to send that over with your offer. Not only that, it could do you a disservice. It could backfire on you. There could be something in here that you don't even realize would be a trigger for the seller to not accept your offer. And we may not even pick up on it or know it, but it could jeopardize your ability to get your offer chosen by the seller. It could work against you. So please don't ever submit any kind of letter about, you guys shouldn't even be writing them. Like I've heard of agents now, since they can't submit them for their client, Amanda's like, yes, I've seen them. You do it inadvertently with your submission email. You'll write an email that's like this. Hi, Cassie. Thank you so much for considering my buyer's offer. It's not your buyer, first of all. Please stop saying my buyer and my seller. I know, right? Thank you so much for considering my buyer's offer. I just want to give you a little bit of background on them. They're a military family, PCXing or PXing, whatever it is. PCSing in from China. The end of this month, they've not even seen the house, but I did a virtual tour and they fell in love. They really want to be in this school district for their kids. They've done all their research and your house just fits and checks all their boxes, right? And that is, some agents are writing emails like that to submit their offer. What did you just do? You just wrote a love letter. You just possibly, so now if this seller hates the military, hates veterans, hates the government, whatever, you don't know, and they exist.
We literally sell. Yeah, we were the buyer's agent. They went under contract with the seller. And then the seller finds out that our buyer was in the military. And when it came up to pins, took time to negotiate the inspections, he said, huh, these veterans think they're entitled to everything. I'm giving them nothing.
Yep.
And it turned into a thing. There. But I mean,
Yeah.
and just that, like, that seller was like, they think
Yeah.
they're so entitled, da 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 da.
And guys, you may not even realize it. Is being a veteran a protected class?
Yes.
Which protected class?
I'm not really sure.
I'm saying that's the.
Oh, income, yeah, but I know.
Source of income. It's their job.
That's how.
It's their job. It's how they get paid. Just like a marijuana distributor or a marijuana grower is now a protected class if that's how they make their income. A lot of us think source of income, and what do we automatically think? Vouchers, right? Section 8, that only applies to rentals, right? So source of income isn't applicable in the sale contract. That's just a rental thing. No, it's your veterans. It's any job that people may think is politicians, possibly. A retiree. Well, that's age. That's age. I know.
With Barb Maloney, she's like one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I hear her all the time. She was like, "Stop running your mouth."
Yes.
Stop. Like the people said, why does this person want to stop? They want to move.
Right.
Like it's
Stop saying why.
Yeah, just just like, she was like,
Yep.
we as agents, we talk too much.
Yes,
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm the type of agent, I let you talk too, cause I will be
Right?
all against you.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes. But you guys need to stop talking.
The one that you can't
Thank
get
you.
any feedback on the show.
I know, right? No
I
feedback.
don't even say it. I want people to know I don't
Uh-huh. But yes, it is. It's all these little things that are getting you in trouble that could get your clients in trouble. So no love letters, no photos, no videos, nothing. Sellers are responsible to maintain their property, physical condition, insurance, utilities, all of those things. So I'm not going over all of that. Repairs. Seller is notified that the repairs of the property may require that the individuals engaged to perform them have to be licensed. Compensation. We're going to spend some time on compensation. Because this is where I think you guys are still getting very confused. So on your listing agreements, the sellers have the option, right? Compensation is negotiable, always negotiable. So please don't say things like, well, industry standard is, or everybody charges this, or this is what my broker requires me to charge, right? Please take those words out of your vocabulary. You have got to get skilled at negotiating your value. This is where you are selling you and your value and why you should earn and be compensated at the level that you're asking. You can say, now here's what you can say. Mr. Seller, that's a great question about compensation. And my compensation that I charge is 3% plus a flat fee of $8.95. $14.95, whatever your flat fee is. And the seller says, oh, well, I know, and it says, I know compensation is negotiable, so I'm not willing to pay that. I'm only willing to pay, or I only want to pay 2%. I understand. And you have a right to that. However, as how I do my business, for how I market and sell properties and the level of marketing expertise I'm going to bring to your listing, I do not list properties for less than 3%. Let me go over again everything I'm going to do for you, right, to sell your property. So you do not have to accept less than what you're willing to work for. You can set your bottom line compensation that you're willing to go to. Does that make sense? So just because compensation is negotiable doesn't mean that you have to negotiate away your value and work for something below what you're willing to work for. You can set your own minimum compensation that you're willing to accept and to work for. Okay. Where I want you to be careful is setting different compensation levels for different people. Right? Let me refer you back up to this paragraph right here.
It's all a big contradiction. That's just all a big contradiction.
What is? What do you
It's a
mean?
contradiction to say seller can negotiate. Okay, you negotiate and you come down from the 3 to the 2.5 or the 2.
Right.
Then the next person is not willing to negotiate, so you give them the whole 3. Now I have to justify why this one person got a lower commission.
Right.
Were you playing favorites, or did you know that they had the money so you could
Right.
gouge them?
Yeah.
So it's
That's
a lot.
So I think that's why you had to be consistent, in like your listing presentation, because on mine, it's basically, I just put 5%. I take 3 and I give the person, 2. If they negotiate different, you know what I'm saying, then I can tell the brokerage basically what to do or what's on my compensation, the other addendum that goes with this. But I'm consistent across the board. It's in my listing presentation. Everybody gets the same thing. Everybody is going, and this is just what I charge. So I don't really want to be pulled to the carpet saying, well, I gave this person this, and because of this, like my flat fee is always this amount because
For your
of
presentation. But
in my
it could end up being lower if the seller negotiates, right?
No, this is what I'm okay
Kathy.
with not listing your home if you're not gonna pay me what I'm
Yeah.
worth.
But here's what our recommendation is. And she's gotten to that level of being able to sell herself in a listing presentation, right? And That's why, yeah, I mean, that's why I teach. You've gotta be able to negotiate, right? Our number one skill that makes us valuable as the realtor in the transaction, it's not putting it on the MLS, right? Anybody can do that. Any data entry system can do that. It's not putting it out on Zillow. They can do that themselves. They can even go to ChatGPT now and get an entire marketing plan on how to market and sell their listing by themselves, right? They can go to ChatGPT and get market value analysis and find out how much to list their house for. The one thing they cannot do through ChatGPT is the negotiation skills, becoming an expert negotiator, right? And being able to hold that transaction together and negotiate with the party on the other side and hold that line with a cool level head and a level of experience and expertise.
When I first started this almost 5 years ago, full time, I remember a class that I took about with Tina for negotiation. And, you know, with stuff, she was like, if I can't negotiate my compensation,
Yep, I was just gonna give that.
how am I going to negotiate for you? If I can't
For your
negotiate
money.
for myself, how am I going to negotiate for your money?
Yep. So that's one script that I love and that agents use and it works. I'm telling you, it works is, Mrs. Seller, I understand. Yes, compensation is negotiable. However, I've just gone over all the things that I'm going to do to list and market your house, right? Zillow showcase listing, professional photography, professional videography, a 3D virtual tour, professional cleaning or landscaping or whatever you're doing in your marketing package, right? I've just gone over all of that with you. What I charge for all of the services, the level of service that I provide to market and sell your property. And I've explained to you, most likely, hopefully, our goal is to get multiple offers and list and sell for more than what we list for. You've explained to me your bottom line, how much money you hope to make when you sell your property, right? Yes. So, Ms. Seller, if I'm not even able to negotiate with you for my compensation, for my worth, for my value, money that goes in my pocket, how confident would you be in my negotiation skills to make sure that I'm guarding your money, your bottom line? And then it gets really awkward because then I sit here like this. Cindy's
You
good.
take lower than, you take a lower commission for one sale.
Right.
Regardless
You're
if you
exactly
try to-
right. So let me explain to you how you can do it. There is a way to charge to accept a lower compensation as part of your business, how you do business. Several of our agents have adopted this model. You can go in with multiple package offerings, or you don't even have to go in with multiple package offerings, but here's how that works. So if you want to go the multiple package offerings route, so for my platinum package or my diamond package or whatever, you get, it's 3% plus $14.95 transaction fee. With that, you get the Zillow showcase listing, you get the professional photography, videography, drone footage, twilight footage, landscaping prep work. You get a professional cleaner that I send out to your property. You know, the sign panel, all of these things. This is everything you get for my platinum marketing package. It's 3% plus $14.95. The other option is you can choose the bronze package or the whatever you want to call it. I don't care. The bronze package, which removes the Zillow showcase listing, which I've gone over. We keep the professional photography because that's a non-negotiable. We remove the landscaping consultation and we remove the professional cleaning. And it's just the professional photography, the social media, you know, maybe over here is social media boosted ads or, you know, X amount of open houses. Over here is one open house on opening weekend and no boosted ads and professional photography and videography. And for that package, it's $2.95. I mean, 2.5% plus $6.95. That's it. Which package would you like to choose from? Because now what did you do? You gave them an option, a negotiation. They can get the 2.5%, but you don't get the Rolls Royce of marketing for the Datsun purchase price, right? Does anybody remember Datsun? I don't know. I don't think they may. I was trying to find a car they don't make anymore. So I don't insult anybody in the room. A Pinto, or, yeah, right, the Pinto, thank you. But do you see what I'm saying? So you've given two options, so now you can explain that everybody that takes a 2.5% comp package, this is the marketing package that they're paying for, this is what they get for that value, right? Versus everybody that I charge 3% or 3.5% or whatever, you can even do 3.5%, 3% and 2.5%. I don't care what your packages are, but you can. And if you don't want to go in with a package, you're like, that's just craziness. I don't feel that. Like, I don't want to do that. But what you can do then is you go in at your high point, right? 3% plus $14.95, Mrs. Seller. This is the compensation that I charge for all of the marketing that I do. And when they beat you up and they try to say, well, but other agents have told me 2.5%, you're right. Are they doing all these things for you? Because 100%, I can guarantee you they're not doing Zillow Showcase, period, off the table. Because there's only like 4 brokerages in Maryland that are doing Zillow Showcase. So I know they're not doing that for you. So we can remove that. If you want to remove the Zillow Showcase and you want me to be more comparable in price to the other agents, then I'll offer you the marketing package that is comparable to all the other agents. And it would be 2.5% at that point. We'll remove Zillow Showcase, landscaping, professional cleaning, and it's 2.5%. And then I can do 2.5%. Let them decide, right? Let them decide. It doesn't have to be as formal as packages if you want. But if you negotiate down, and then always, every time you negotiate to 2.5%, you're removing the Zillow Showcase listing. Every time you list at 3%, you're providing a Zillow Showcase listing. Or some added value, right? Professional cleaning, landscaping, whatever.
Like if that question ever becomes, if we're not doing the packages and the question ever becomes, why was it 3% here and 2% here?
I don't think so, because you'll be able to show that you did a Zillow Showcase listing with this one, or you paid for a professional cleaner to come in and clean this property because it's going to be in your records. But this property, you don't. Because then when they go and they interview all the sellers that are 2.5%, did you get professional cleaning? No, I didn't. I opted not to because I wanted the lower compensation.
So long as you know why
And you're consistent, as long as you're consistent. That's the key. Where it becomes an issue, and we had an agent in the office that used to do this. And where it became an issue was this agent always charged, say, 4% compensation plus $14.95 flat fee transaction fee. And this particular agent had one seller that in their culture, it is commonplace to barter, to bargain, to negotiate, to drive a deal, right? And this agent, it tried to argue it, tried to combat it, tried to negotiate through it, and ended up giving a discount and gave this client a discounted rate. It was outside of his normal way of doing his business. Okay, he did it for this one client, this one time. Well, he did a great job. They loved him. And then they recommended him to everybody in their circle. Now it becomes a cultural thing, right? So now these people in this particular group of referrals, because now that seller said, beat him up. You can get him down. I got him down from 4 to 2.5. And so now every person within this cultural circle was beating him down. And he finally had to say, you know what? No, I'm not doing any more. And he turned them down. He said, I cannot list your house. My going rate is this. If you're willing to pay it, great. I will work with you, but I did that one time. Obviously, I'm not doing it ever again. I should not have done it that time and learned a hard lesson. But do you see how then now that becomes a cultural thing and a fair housing thing? Yeah. So be careful. Just be careful. You can't say, okay, well, anybody that comes to me from my church, I will give you a discounted commission or I'll waive my flat fee. Right? Exactly. Family, charge them 10%. They're the worst. No, because, right, because your church people, and I'm not picking on anybody in particular but I know I have a lot of churchgoers, you know, that's great in theory, but religion is a protected class, right? You may not even think about it. You may not even think this is a fair housing violation or and it's not a fair housing violation within your church people. Who's it a fair housing violation to? Everybody else that's not one of your church people. Because it looks like you're discriminating, well, yeah, or the Catholics or the banana religion people, whatever, right? Because it looks like everybody else that is not the same religion as me, I'm discriminating against you because I didn't charge you a flat fee. That's how easy it is to slip into something like that. So compensation. So it is negotiable. On here in the listing agreement is where you identify the total commission that the seller is agreeing to preliminarily in the listing agreement. They're agreeing to this. It's locked and loaded to pay the listing brokerage. Okay. And I'm choosing my verbiage very carefully because I want you guys to hear my words when you're sitting in a listing presentation with a seller. This is the total amount that they're agreeing to pay the listing broker. Okay. So there's a couple ways of filling this out. It can either be a percentage of the sales price, a percentage of the sales price and a flat fee, or just a flat fee. Okay. Here's what I want you to start to think about, and think about this part of your listing presentation in the new NAR settlement world. Okay. So I'm not even going to talk about the old NAR settlement world. It's already been mentioned once in the room, but I'm going to talk about new NAR settlement world. This is how much the seller is agreeing to pay who? Thank you. The listing broker and you, the listing agent, in compensation. How much do you as a listing agent hope to be compensated and charge for listing and marketing this seller's property? Give me a number. 3% plus $8.95. So when the seller asks you, how much do I have to pay in compensation? How much do you tell them? No.
Oh, for me?
No. Hold your tongue for a second for me, because you've already answered this for me. The old NAR settlement way. In the new world.
And then you can say, there is a negotiable, buyer compensation.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So your answer, Mr. Seller, I don't know if you paid attention to the news. This is now like 2 years old news. Like, it's old news now at this point, but compensation is always negotiable. My compensation that I charge for everything I've gone over with you is 3% plus $8.95. That is all the compensation that you are guaranteed you will have to pay when your property sells. And they're going to be like, oh, what? That's amazing. Because I had an agent in here earlier today that told me 5% and $14.95. Sorry. Right?
They included.
They're including the buyer's compensation, and they're making them agree to it up front without it even being negotiable for that seller. So your answer is, yeah, that's the way it used to be done. The sellers always used to have to pay a buyer's agent. These days, today, that is completely negotiable. And we can make it part of their offer so that those that bring a really strong, great offer, if they need buyer agent compensation, they'll put it in as part of the terms of their offer. But you don't have to preliminarily guarantee and agree to pay a buyer agent compensation.
So what do we put in the 14 then?
3% plus $14.95 or whatever your compensation
that's
is. Here's where I want you to think this through, though. So here's a caveat, right? But that's how this now other agents are going into their listing presentations. So yes, if you come in and you say 5 or 6 plus your flat fee, and they've interviewed 3 other agents from 3 other brokerages, and they've all said 3% plus a flat fee, They're like, oh, I'm going with Linda, so she's only 3%, and they all told me 6%. See the difference? So where you have to think this through though, is, and where it could, you just have to put on your what if hat, right? So what if an unrepresented buyer comes in? And you've only negotiated, the sellers only agreed to pay 3% plus a flat fee. You may want to have a conversation, or the other way that this is, I've seen this being filled out, 3% of the sales price and $495, semicolon. In the event an unrepresented buyer presents an offer, an additional 1.5% compensation will be charged. Or seller to pay 1.5%. This one down here.
So what is, so
Yeah.
help me understand that, like, if they're an unrepresented buyer, right? All I'm really doing for them anyway is
It's what?
just like, yeah, the minister, well, no, just writing the contract. I'm not negotiating for them.
No, but are you showing up to let them in for the home inspector and sitting in the house while the home inspector's there with them? Are you then taking what they want to put together on a pin and writing up the pin as a ministerial act to then present to your seller? Yeah. Are you making sure that you're meeting the appraisal, that you're making sure the lender's getting through the loan process, that you're making sure they filled out the buyer form for the title company that needs to be done for settlement, otherwise it's not going to settlement. So yes, yeah, whatever you want to do. You can do a flat fee, but remember, guys, this is where we used to double side deals and get paid 6%. So why are you going to take less for the same amount of work you used to do and get paid 6% for? See what I'm saying?
Okay.
But all I want you to do is make sure you're thinking through this, that you're filling it out so that it's not a negotiation when it happens after the fact.
Like, say, 3%, yeah, unrepresentative agent. Buyer.
You can put it on both. Or you can add another line with an initial beside it. Where I want you to be careful of is these radio bullets will only let you select one or the other. So if you're filling in this line for the unrepresented buyer and this one for standard.
We filled in the bottom line for everything. It said
Oh,
3% plus
okay.
$895. In the event of an unrepresented buyer.
Perfect.
Increases to 5% and.
Perfect. That's perfect. That's fine.
Also, in the event of.
So you only use
$5%.
compensation to increase to 5% plus your flat fee.
And
Perfect.
when I had the conversation with the seller, I took the approach that I was saving them 0.5%. Because I said, most buyers are gonna ask for 2.5% with their offer. But if somebody comes along and doesn't have an agent, I'm not gonna charge the whole 2.5%. And that's the conversation we had. So we put the whole thing in
On that line. Yep, that's fine. On the third line.
So, in the event of an unrepresented buyer, compensation to increase to 5%.
Yeah, but you need, so you're using it on this third line.
Yeah.
So you would need to say, my only worry is this dollar sign, it's still there, but it would say 3% of the sales. Oh, yeah, okay, $895, that works, thank you. $895 plus 3% of the sales price, semicolon.
Yeah.
In the event of an unrepresented buyer, compensation increases to 5% or plus $895. 5% of the sales price plus $895. Yes. If you use Aisha, she does it for you. But you got to tell her what you want it to be, right? I mean, you got to advise her on how it should be, because yes, you just don't want to get in the, but if you're fine, if you're like 3%, that's what I'm charging plus my flat fee. If it's an unrepresented buyer, I'll do it all anyway and still just collect my 3%, but you're leaving money on the table. And I highly encourage you to get compensated for working with that unrepresented buyer, because I'm going to tell you right now,
They're a nuisance.
they are a nuisance,
Even
right?
though
There's a
they
reason
don't tell them,
they're
"I don't
gonna be
represent you."
and they still think that that you represent them. Yes, Hunter,
Just curious, because I am gonna do this myself with charging an additional percentage.
nice.
For them.
Yeah.
If in the event a seller is combative to that and says, I'm only doing 3%, so I'm paying you to sell my house. I'm just asking you, like, as the broker, if it comes to that conversation, are we allowed to still take that on?
You can, it's totally up to you.
Okay.
You mean, and do it without getting but you also can negotiate with the buyer for the buyer to pay you. Just make sure you disclose it to the seller that you're collecting commission from the buyer as well. But you could charge the buyer a flat fee or a percentage and a flat fee, but just make sure they understand this is not for representation. This does not create an agency relationship, that they are agreeing to pay you for ministerial acts in assisting them with their contract. 1.5%, 2% of the purchase price plus a flat fee or a total flat fee. There should be a form. I know there should be a form. There should be a form. There's not a form. I know, right? Because this does leave a void in the compensation negotiation now. So, or an additional option, like another line on this form, another line that speaks to what, something but you would need a buyer form. This number here is important. This is your holdover clause. If during a period of blank days following the expiration or termination of this agreement, seller shall enter into a written agreement to sell, exchange, convey, or transfer the property to any person or entity which, with knowledge of the seller or any agent, inspected or made inquiry about the property or negotiated to purchase during the term of the agreement, they owe a compensation to our brokerage. Okay. So this number of days, you want it to be a long period. This holdover should be 180 or 365. Yes. You want it to be a long enough period to deter them from canceling the agreement with you, the listing agreement, waiting out this number of days, because we just had this happen. We got a call from a client that canceled their listing agreement. This number of days, I think, was 30 days. 30 days. They terminated with the listing agent. It was horrible experience, whatever. A buyer that they knew and brought in, the seller, but they brought, whether it was procured by the seller or the listing agent, this paragraph applies during the listing term. This is only 30 days. And they said, well, they may still want to make an offer. They'd be willing to wait the 30 days though. 30 days, which means that listing agent does not get paid a compensation and does not do compensation for that buyer. Right? It's another brokerage, not us. So it wasn't us. We got the seller calling us wanting to list with one of our agents after terminating with another agent that they had listed with. So I know, right? You're ready to go to the mat. So 365, a lot of you do 365, 180 is fine, 6 months, right? Because how many buyers and sellers are willing to wait 6 months to finalize a transaction just to cut an agent out of a commission? They're not going to do that. So a long period, please make it long enough. Deposit, this paragraph, this is referring to the release of escrow deposit. If you negotiate through the termination of the contract for your seller to keep any or all of the escrow deposit because the buyer defaulted, this number should be 50%, meaning 50% of the escrow deposit you've negotiated to be kept comes to you and the brokerage as compensation. Okay, it's split 50-50 between you and the seller. Again, you guys leave a lot of money on the table. I see it all the time. Yes.
Happens, they give you 50%, but you continue on listing their property and get another buyer. So you get that 50% and then you still get.
Yes. Because remember, when this happens, a lot of times we're 2 or 3 weeks or even 4 weeks into the contract we've negotiated contracts. I've met the appraiser for this buyer. We've done, how much stuff do you do up for 3, sending communications to title, You know what I mean? You do a lot of work. You took the property off the market and now this buyer terminates, bails, defaults on the contract. You then negotiate for the release of deposit to go to your seller. That takes time and energy, right? All this time you've been doing work. So why would the seller get fully compensated for all of that time being off market when you were the one doing all the work, right? So 50% should come to you and the brokerage. So you get paid that out at your split, it's commission. Property stays on the market, you generate a new buyer, you do all that work all over again, it closes, you get paid your compensation. Yep. 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 I mean,
I think it's happened like one.
you guys love, let me tell you, I see it. We see it all the time. You guys love to work for free. I don't know why. Free does not pay your mortgage or your car payment or your wedding bills. For me, Hunter's a little longer than mine, yes. So authority to cooperate and compensate with other brokers. So this is where I need you to understand. If on this page, you're only collecting 3% plus your flat fee or 2.5% or whatever, you're only collecting your half of the compensation. What gets filled in here for buyer agent and or seller sub agent?
Zero.
Thank you. Zero. Zeros. Okay.
But if we already negotiated 2 point.
If you negotiated on the previous page 5 or 6 or 5.5% or whatever, with the intention of sharing 2.5% with a buyer's agent or a sub agent, then yes, those still have to go here. And then you have to use the listing broker's offer of compensation addendum, disclosing it. Make sense? Questions?
I just actually sent one out. Because I didn't have it on the case sheet, not the case sheet, but on the checklist sheet. But I had actually sent it in my contract where it shows that, not with the contract, but they actually sent the contract showing we were both 2.5. All that was sent out, he said, well, you need to send the listing brokers offer compensation that I was willing to do 2.5%.
Was it in your listing agreement? Did your listing agreement say like 5%?
Yes.
Okay, then yes, the listing broker's offer of compensation addendum is how you communicate with the listing, I mean, the buyer's agents and the buyers, that the seller has authorized you to share your commission with their agent.
So if we only do the 3%, we don't even need that.
No, then that addendum doesn't go. And here's how that phone call works. Hey, Cassie, this is Tina Hyatt with Hyatt and Company Real Estate. How are you? Listen, I have a buyer that's interested in submitting an offer on your 123 Maple Street. Is the seller offering compensation? Great question, Tina. No, it's all negotiable. I would just say the seller has just decided, have you put it in the buyer's offer and make it a part of their offer. They're willing to consider it with the right terms, just make it part of the offer. And then they send you the buyer's request for seller to pay buyer agent compensation addendum. I don't think they could have made that name any longer.
I was just saying, I've also been doing that recently, on the buying side.
Yes.
Just, this is what I'm.
Yes.
Not even giving them that chance to say, we're offering 2%.
Right.
Something low that they're offering, this is what I'm asking for as part of it.
Right, exactly. And that's what I see a lot of agents doing, not even making that initial phone call to the listing agent or expecting it to come over, just putting together your offer with the buyer's offer, buyer's request for seller to pay buyer agent compensation addendum. Number 1 being left 0. Number 2, where it's the buyer's additional compensation request, 2.5% to the buyer's agent, 3% or whatever. Just sending it with your offer, not even delaying or waiting for it to come over, right? Because sometimes we don't have time. You don't have time to wait for the listing agent to respond to you of whether they're offering compensation or not, or just put it in your offer. Just send it over with your offer. Mhm. Hopefully you're having that at the time you're getting the buyer broker agreement signed. Yes. Yes.
TBD not be put here.
Yes, this cannot be to be determined. This is not is negotiable. That's what I need you guys to understand, because there's confusion that, well, but if I put 0, that means they're not willing to pay any buyer agent. No, that means you have not preliminarily agreed as a seller that this is what you're locked in to paying to a buyer's agent, right?
And it means you need to come.
Right. Yes, come to class. So this is not TBD. It's, if it's not added into the total amount being collected by the listing broker on the previous page, then this is 0. And then it's negotiable with the terms of the offer on the buyer's request for seller to pay addendum. Make sense? Yes. No, you're fine.
Conversation with the seller ahead of time. Then that's going to be what they decide they want to give.
Well, not that. It's at the time that you're doing the listing packet, depending on how you fill this in. If this is just referring to your compensation as the listing agent, what's coming to the listing brokerage, and not an added amount to share with a buyer's agent, then yes, the next part is always going to be 0 and 0. You may have a seller that says, you know what? No, I absolutely, I want to offer compensation to a buyer's agent. I definitely do. And that's fine. They can. But here's what I need you to understand as their agent that's having this conversation with them. Totally understand that. I know, I get it. Like, especially your old school or older sellers, right? That are used to the old way. They've bought houses, and when they bought a house, their buyer's agent compensation was paid for by the seller, and they want to pay forward, right? They want to do the same thing and pay the compensation. That's totally fine. You can do that. However, you don't have to put it in here. You can still offer and pay a buyer agent's compensation. You don't have to put it in here, because this, putting it in here and guaranteeing to pay, because I had an agent say to me the other day, yeah, but it's to make the property more attractive to buyer's agents, to make them want to sell this listing, because we're offering this compensation up front. I said, how are you advertising that to them? Oh, well, I'm not. So how are you using that as an inducement to them to bring all their buyers to your property, because you're guaranteeing to pay them 2.5% compensation? And I could see the light bulb go on in the head, like, oh, this used to go in the MLS, right? And it was an inducement or an enticement to a buyer's agent to want to bring their buyer to make and earn this compensation. This is what got us sued by the public, right? Because we were fixing commission by doing that. So it's no longer advertised. So it's no longer an enticement to an agent to bring their buyer to sell your property. That's gone. Does that make sense? I know.
Y'all can call me.
And me during business hours. During business hours. We might not have any agents left over, but we're gonna great. Lead-based paint, so I'm not, yeah, yep.
So, number 15 should be 0.
Right, if number 14, you're only collecting compensation for yourself, i.e. 3%.
Then 15.
5%.
You're doing 5% upfront on number 14, and you're sharing 2.5 that with buyer's agent. Number 15 should have.
Has to be 2.5%.
And
and
then
then-
you also have.
Does it have to be 2.5%?
No, 2.
Be whatever you want, whatever you negotiate.
And you can or whatever, if you have questions, you just call me, and I'll help you.
So it all depends on whether it all depends on whether the total amount of compensation in number 14 is intended to be shared with another agent outside that brings a buyer, inside or outside the brokerage that brings a buyer. If that number $14 amount is intended to be split in any way with a buyer's agent that brings a buyer, that dollar amount must go on number 15. That's the best way I can say that. If that dollar amount on 14 is just your compensation and is not intended to be split, here's what we see sometimes. Here's what we see. We see all different kinds of craziness, but what we see. Number 14 says 3% plus $8.95, right? And then number 15 says 2.5. How much money are you making on that transaction? 0.5%. And they say, no, the 3% is mine, but the seller's willing to pay 2.5. Great. That's not what your paperwork says, right? Number 14 is the total amount of money the seller is agreeing to pay to you and or a buyer's agent. Does that make sense? So then if any of number 14 is going to go to a buyer's agent, it must be then listed total amount on 14 and that amount subtracted out on number 15.
2 times.
Yes, sub-agent and buyer's agent, same dollar, same percentage on both. Yes.
Now, sometimes I see where agents are doing 0% to a sub-agent.
To a sub-agent.
2.5%.
And it shouldn't be. It should be the same dollar amount. Exactly. Should be the same dollar amount.
For sub-agent.
Yes. Should be the same dollar amount.
To make that.
Right. What is sub-agent? It's just a buyer that what? Refuses to sign the buyer broker agreement.
And sometimes that you still.
Yes. So if the seller's willing to pay a buyer agent 2.5%, if that same agent can't get that buyer to sign a buyer broker agreement, why would that sell? But they're still bringing an offer, still going to meet the home inspector, still going to do the final walkthrough, still going to communicate with the lender and the title and do all the things. Why would that seller not compensate them as sub-agent of the seller? Because now who do they represent? The seller. Make sense? Same dollar. They're never going to have to pay both in a transaction. It's only ever going to be a buyer's agent or a seller sub-agent.
So you want to start? Do it on the old.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not wrong. It's not it's just not right. Like, it's not wrong, but it's not right. So we'll talk. If you have the same person doing it, let me know who it is. I'll just have they probably don't even understand. And it's probably one of our old school agents. So we'll talk about it and I'll just have a conversation with them. I'm going to skip all of these other paragraphs, lead paint, deferred water and sewer. Just please make sure you're using the disclosure addendums. We're not going to have time to get into all of the addendums. Otherwise this class will be like 4-hour class. But we don't teach list because yes. Here is authority to disclose existing offers. Remember, this is the seller giving you permission or not giving you permission to disclose the existence of other offers. This is not the details of the other offers. You cannot say, oh, you got to beat 580 or, you can't even be like, oh, higher. Like, you can't give away the details of the other offers. All you can say is, yes, Cindy, I have 3 other offers in hand. Bring us your highest and best. We're presenting all offers Sunday at 6 p.m. Right? If Cindy asks me, so Tina, thank you for telling me that. Listen, are any of those offers your own? Meaning, are any of those offers your own? Meaning you're like an unrepresented buyer. You have to answer honestly and disclose if asked. You have to answer honestly. Because why? What does that unrepresented buyer's offer
They said to
present or in competition to your buyer's offer? It could be stronger because you can reduce the commission, waive the commission, like that buyer's offer might be stronger than your offer. So they have a right to know that one of those offers is yours. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it even says here, well, it says, well, it
So
doesn't,
do you have to disclose if they ask, or you have to, well, only if they ask?
here it is. Yes, if they ask. So it's right here. If disclosure is authorized, broker or broker's agents shall also disclose, if asked, whether an offer was obtained by the listing agent, another agent in the broker's firm, or by a cooperating broker. So if they ask you, are they from within your office? Are any of them yours? Are they from agents outside your office? You have to disclose that. So that would sound like, yep, Cassie, I'm glad great question. 2 of the offers are from cooperating brokers. 1 offer is from an agent in my office. Or 1 agent is an unrepresented buyer. 1 offer is from an unrepresented buyer. 2 offers are from cooperating brokers. That's how that would look. That's it. Yeah. If asked, right, only if asked. Presentation of offers. This is important. Broker shall present to seller in a timely manner all written offers and counter offers, even if the property is subject to an existing contract of sale, unless the seller has waived the obligation in writing. So this is how this looks. Seller has not waived your obligation to present them all offers as they're coming in. You're sitting at the settlement table, it's closing day, and you get a text message with an email into your email box that says, Cassie Dorsey has submitted an offer on 123 Maple Street. Do I have to disclose the existence of that offer to my seller? Yes. I have to stop settlement and I have to say, Belinda, I'm so sorry, everybody. I just need to speak to Belinda for a moment. Belinda, can you join me outside? And then I saw Belinda that an offer came in on her property that we're sitting at settlement to settle. Where this is most important is when you still have open contingencies in your contract, right? Especially a home inspection contingency. And I coached in one of our agents, they had a buyer that wanted to submit a backup offer on a property that was under contract. And this agent knew, because the listing agent told them, which I think was completely inappropriate. They shouldn't have told them, but it helps our buyer and our agent, that they were still in their 5-day seller response window for the property inspection repairs. I was like, oh, yes, let's put together this backup offer, because why? And I wanted it in. I said, you better get this backup offer put together and signed by your client and submitted by like tonight or else. Why? Because as that seller's deciding what repairs they're agreeing to in the negotiations, if a stronger offer comes in, that's leverage now to that seller. That now puts them in the driver's seat of negotiations, where they might decide, and who do I owe allegiance, loyalty, fiduciary duties to? Our buyer that wants this property that we know is in a 5-day seller response window for property inspection negotiations. Right? Here's another time that's important. Our backup offer goes in and the appraisal comes back and it underappraises, right? That seller now has negotiating power because our offer is sitting on the table also. So that's why it's really important that you make sure you're letting your sellers know when there's backup offers on the table. Makes sense? And if an agent calls you and says, hey, Hunter, listen, this is Tina. I showed your listing. I don't know if you remember, but I'm one of the ones that showed your listing on 123 Maple. My buyers are really, really interested. I know you accepted a contract. They were trying to iron out a few details on their financing. They're there, they're set. They have their heart set on your property. If anything happens, can you let me know? I want to be the first one to know. My answer to them is, you know what, Tina? Absolutely. But I'd recommend one thing even better. Just go ahead and submit a backup offer. Put it in writing. Put together your backup offer in writing, send it over. That way I have it in hand as we enter into negotiations for different contingency windows on the property.
So,
Like I want it in writing.
so if you do the backup offer, let's say I do a backup offer today
Yep.
and, the original falls apart in 2 weeks. When they come to the backup offer, do I pull that back to actually change the closing date? Like everything is gonna, because you know, on the backup.
So
offer,
there's an addendum. There is a backup offer addendum and you want to use the backup offer addendum. What that does is the sellers actually sign your contract and sign the backup offer addendum, which now makes your contract binding to the seller should their current contract fall through. So it's a unilateral agreement, meaning the seller is locked and bound to your contract as soon as their other contract were to fall through. But it's voidable or rescindable by the buyer up until it becomes the primary contract.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So the buyer can rescind that backup offer anytime up until they're notified by the seller that their offer has, or that their contract is now the primary, the sole contract, that it's been whatever, activated.
Actually sent the backup contract, but I did not know that I should have actually, that should have sent back.
Yeah, the backup, if they're willing to, and they may not be willing to, and then it's just an offer sitting, yeah, the backup offer addendum. And in there are, I don't know all the terms exactly, I'd take a look at it. But I think that does it talk about the windows, like when things would begin, timeframes?
Time may specify the contract shall be measured for the date seller delivers written notice to.
There you go. So that's it. So your deadlines begin the date that the seller delivers written notice to the buyer that contract is now in effect. That becomes your date of contract acceptance. So all your timeframes begin off of that. So your settlement date, you're gonna have to revise the settlement date if they can't get it closed within that window. But they have to be willing to do that, because remember, it's a ratified contract as soon as they deliver notice that your contract is the primary contract. So that includes the settlement date,
Okay.
right?
So
That becomes a term of the contract.
So I guess if you're using like a backup offer, maybe you should ideally push the settlement date out.
I would do like 60 days. Yeah. I would do like a 60-day contract.
So Tina, so technically, a seller would only have one.
No, they could have, no, yes, I'm sorry. If they're signing one backup contract, yes, they can have unlimited backup offers. But if they sign that backup contract addendum and they sign that contract, that is the only one that they can sign, right? But if they don't want to sign that, or if the agent doesn't send over the backup contract addendum, it's just a backup offer. That is an offer on the table up until the buyers rescind it verbally in writing, or until the seller executes the contract and it becomes a ratified contract.
That's what.
Yeah. They have to sign that backup offer addendum, backup contract addendum. Yeah. I'm not going to go through all of these other things. Maryland non-resident seller. This is really important that you guys are going over this with a seller. This impacts their money, and it's increasing. It's page 8. And this legislative session or last legislative session, our documents are going to be changing. It's now 8.5% for a non-resident seller, individual. It used to be higher for an entity. Now it's higher for a seller. Thank you, Governor Westmore.
Can you circle back to 23, what we just in that
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. So paragraph 23, and this is another one that we're seeing, property condition disclosure disclaimer, seller disclosure disclaimer law. There is a law that states a seller must disclose any known latent defects and issues with their property, disclaim that they have no knowledge or they have knowledge of latent defects, right? We all know that's a law. There are 5, 7 classes of sellers that are exempt from disclosure disclaimer. It's sellers, and they're all listed right down here, A through G. Unimproved property, the initial sale of a brand new home that's never been occupied or which a UNO has been issued within 1 year. If it's exempt from transfer tax, sale by a lender and foreclosure, a court-appointed trustee, tax sale, sheriff's sale, an administration of an estate, guardianship, conservatorship, or trust. Those are the exemptions, right? Otherwise, if they don't fit one of those classes, they're required by law to disclose on the disclosure disclaimer statement. It's a 4-page addendum. They either fill out completely and answer every question on pages 1 through 3 and sign page 3. All 4 pages go over together. Page 4 is left blank. Or if they don't want to take the time and fill out pages 1 through 3, they leave them all blank and they sign only page 4. There should never be a signature on both page 3 and page 4. If they start filling out 1 through 3 and they decide, oh, this is too much, I don't know all this, I don't want to deal with this, I just want to, never mind, I just want to do page 4, you have to print out a new document. And they only sign page 4, okay? No, you're not supposed to. It's supposed to go over all.
If they sign by accident.
Yeah. You're not supposed to. I mean, if they only signed their name on page 3 and didn't fill out 1 through 3, you could strike it, have them initial, I guess, and then have them sign page 4. But if they start filling out page 1 or page 1 and 2 or whatever, and they decide they don't want to deal with it, you can't just strike out page 1 and page 2 and then do page 4. This document is one of the documents that is required to be given to the buyer before entering into a contract of sale or at the time that they're writing their contract. Okay, so it has to go over with your disclosures. If it doesn't, you forget it, you don't load it to the MLS, whatever, and they don't get it at or before they enter into a contract of sale with your seller and you ratify, that contract of sale is voidable by the seller all the way up until they receive that document and for 5 days after receipt of the disclosure disclaimer statement. It's by the buyer. It's an automatic get out of jail free card. Yes. Oh, yeah. By the buyer, not by the seller, by the buyer, because the seller has failed to disclose per Maryland law. It's similar to HOA, condo, right? HOA, they have 5 days to terminate from receipt of the resale packet. Condo, they have 7 days. So, and it's in this paragraph in the middle. We were in a class, Cassie and I, it says a buyer who does not receive the disclosure disclaimer statement on or before execution of the offer by the buyer has the unconditional right upon notice or to the seller to rescind the contract at any time before receipt of the disclosure disclaimer statement or within 5 days following the receipt. We were in a class, and to the immediate return of any deposit. Cassie and I were in a class on, what was that class on? Legislative updates. And there was a woman in there who's been licensed, I don't know, they only went up to 20 years, 25 years. She was more than 20 years, 25 years she's been licensed. And this came up and she was mind blown. Mind blown. Like made us, somebody in the class, please find where that is and show me where that is in the contract. Because she had never heard it in 25 years of being a licensed agent.
But the teacher. had
She knew
said
they had to
something
disclose. She didn't know they had up until and for
Yeah.
5 days after to terminate the contract.
But the teacher had said something else, and I was like, but wait, what if, and I was like, it's 5 days in there somewhere, and it's not the whole.
She was like mind blown, 25 years in the business and had never heard this before. So you need to go tell, well, you need to go tell your other 98 friends in the office that aren't here today. Yeah, so that's important. So thanks, Cass, for pointing that out. Well and water. Here's the National Priorities Superfund site list. You guys need to be addressing this. Is the property located within 1 mile of an NPL Superfund site or not? You can look it up online. There is a website. There is a whole addendum that goes with this. Full disclosure addendum. It gives you where to look it up. You can even Google National Priorities List Superfund website, and it'll pull up the website. You put in the street address. It's going to show you with little symbols. If you don't know how to read the map, phone a friend. Call me, call Amanda, call Aisha, call somebody. Okay? Because this is really important. This also is a disclosable fact. The buyer can terminate if it's not disclosed to them and they find out prior to settlement. If they find out after settlement, Lord help us all. Legally binding document. That is your listing agreement. Okay? I'm going to fly through a couple of these other addendas. If you guys have to go, I totally get it. But this is your listing broker's offer of cooperative compensation. Cannot go in the MLS, right? Cannot be uploaded with your disclosures. Please don't do it. But this is where you're going to list. If in the listing agreement, seller has authorized you to share a portion of your compensation, it goes here. This must match paragraph 15 of your listing agreement. If it's 0 and 0, you don't even use this addendum. Okay. Communication consent addendum. I'm not going to go over that. That's pretty self-explanatory, other than it is required. It is required. Here is the MLS disclosures and residential landlord, seller landlord options. So this is required now with every listing agreement that we sign, whether it's a rental or a purchase or sale. This is where, what's that? The MLS disclosures and residential seller landlord options. It's on here as the sellers and landlords MLS disclosure on your checklist. But this is where you're going to identify when the property is ready to go on the market and showings are to begin. It's not going on the internet. It is going on the internet. So they're going to initial one of these. So if it's ready for marketing, the property will be coming soon. Or it doesn't go on the market at all. This is your office exclusive option. Paragraph 2D. Makes sense? Financial condition of property and disclosure addendum. This is important, guys. This should not be being left out of your listings. This is where the sellers disclose how much they owe on the house. If there is any delinquencies, any judgments, any bankruptcies, any liens, tax liens, condo association, unpaid condo and HOA fees. We just had one of these, right? It's supposed to go on the financial condition of property addendum. It gets filled in here in paragraph J. Notice what it says below paragraph J. Seller acknowledges that broker and their licensees affiliated are required by law to disclose any potential buyer or any licensee cooperating in the sale any information contained in paragraph J. It's a material fact. It's a material fact. Make sense? Questions on this? So when you're meeting with them and you're getting the paper, this is why, guys, we can't just loop out this paperwork to them, because here's what you guys are doing. Here's what's happening. You're auto-filling everything that gets auto-filled, the names and everything else, right? And then you're finding out from them, oh yeah, I have a mortgage with Bank of America, just one. I think I owe like $150 or something like that. Great, you're filling it in. Bank of America, $150,000, check off. You're putting their signature block at the bottom. And when you're sending this out to them, when you share this to the seller, you're selecting can sign. Did you guys realize that you can give the seller the option to fill and sign? But in order for them to fill that in, paragraph J, oh dear, what do you have to do? You have to select it and you have to assign it to them. Assign to seller. Now that paragraph is going to turn gray. When I get back there, I hate that this does that. Look, it turned gray. Now when it goes to them, it's going to pause them here when they're clicking, signing, boom. They get to paragraph J and they have to read it. And if there is anything that applies, they can fill it in. If you send it to them as can fill and edit.
So can they just put NA in there?
They could put NA. Yes.
But you
yes.
want them to stop and read.
Right.
Yes. Yep. Not only that, guys, I wouldn't even be pre-filling any of this up here for them. I would highlight all of this. I would assign it to the seller. Make them fill this out. Because here's what's happening. By you filling that in, if it's not right, or if they miss it and they skip it, what are they going to say when something goes wrong? Oh, Cassie filled that in for me. I didn't fill that in there. Cassie did. I don't even know where that number came from. My mortgage is $250,000. I know, right? Disclosure disclaimer statement. You guys should not be filling that in for them. Inclusions, exclusions. Stop filling that in for them. Right? Because what happens when things go wrong? They're going to point fingers. Right? Lockbox addendum. This is where they give permission to put a lockbox on the property and they sign acknowledging and releasing us from liability if something happens in the property. Something breaks, gets stolen, whatever. Consent for dual agency. Guys, this must be in your listing agreements. This is where they give permission for agents within our brokerage with a signed buyer broker agreement to show their properties as buyer's agent. If they refuse to sign this or they don't sign this, it has to go in the MLS where it says disclosed dual agency, yes or no, you have to say no, which means now Hunter with a signed buyer broker agreement, when he wants to come show my 123 Maple Street, he cannot. As buyer agent, he cannot show it. Buyer's rights notice to buyer and seller. This talks about the disclosure disclaimer statement. This is again where it states a second time in the contract that they can terminate up until and for 5 days after. Again, 25 years. It's mind-blowing to me. Your inclusions, exclusions, leased items, and utilities addendum. Again, please don't be filling this out for them. Make them fill it out. If you're doing it through dot loop, you can just select all of it. And then it doesn't look like it did anything, but it did. Go up here to roll, assign to, oh dear. And if they're in here, you can pick their name. Otherwise, you pick seller. And then it assigns all of that to the seller to fill. See how it all turned gray? Because the seller needs to fill it all out. It does. Oh, I taught you something new?
Yeah.
Yay. Good. I think I taught a few people something new. Here is your disclosure disclaimer statement. There is a common misconception with this, and they're changing this form. There will be a new disclosure disclaimer statement coming out. I don't know exactly when yet. The Real Estate Commission they're revising this. But today was the meeting. Did you sit in on it?
No,
I know, I didn't either. Today was the Real Estate Commission's meeting. They were voting on the changes to this form because this is a law. So they have to vote. The commission has to vote to change this form, not Maryland Realtors Forms Committee, the Real Estate Commission. What the proposed change, one of the proposed changes was A lot of people think when they look at this form, sellers, agents, whatever, that we know it's two different options, right? The seller either discloses on pages 1 through 3 or they disclaim. Well, there's confusion because of, bless you, where this line sits, how long have you owned the property? Sellers fill that in, 20 years, 5 years, whatever. And then they're like, oh, I don't want to disclose. I'm not gonna disclose, I just want to disclaim. Right now, the way this form sits, the moment they fill in and answer this question, what did they just start to do? The disclosure statement. But you guys are allowing this to happen. You're letting them fill in 5 years here and then sign page 4. We can't do that. So the new form, they're moving this down and it's going to be bolded and it's going to say, please, whatever it says, but it changes this and it makes this, and the proposed version of it is on the Real Estate Commission's website, that you could review the proposed changes. So that's a change. The other one that's a change that they're changing is they're deleting approved for number of bedrooms after septic system. Because first of all, how many sellers are even filling that out? Second of all, they've owned the property for 20 years, or they've only owned it for 5 and it was built 20 years ago. How do they know? They don't. So they can't answer this. So it's being left blank, even though if they start filling out the disclosure, they're required to fill out the disclosure completely.
Well, what if they don't?
Exactly. If they don't know, they have to put unknown, NA, we don't know, I don't know, but they're removing that. So they're removing approved for number of bedrooms. They are putting in they're leaving other type, but they're removing approved for number of bedrooms. There were a few other changes.
Still have to put up an answer. Make the mark.
No, you don't have to do that. Nope. Yep. Don't waste your time doing that. Lead-based paint addendums. You guys should know about lead-based paint. Hopefully addendums. I'm not going to go over all of them. They are required. HOA. I'm going to touch on HOA because for whatever reason, this one, we are seeing a lot of issues with not coming in with your contracts, whether you're the buyer's agent or the listing agent. HOA and condo notice, disclosure, and transmittal of docs are required to the buyer by law. These forms should not ever be missing from your contracts, guys. But I'm seeing it over and over and over. But I want you to understand this document, HOA disclosure to buyer and transmittal of documents. It's 2 different things that happen on this addendum. The first is the disclosure to the buyer, right? On page 1, who the HOA is, what the fees are, if there's any delinquencies in it, where they mail and contact the HOA, all of that's page 1. Page 2 begins the transmittal of docs, okay? This is what the seller is going to send over. With your listing, at the time of listing, the seller should be filling out page 1, okay? Page 2 does not get signed and filled out by anybody until the documents have gone from the seller to the buyer. Here's what I'm seeing. With the listing, you guys are getting all of this signed. You're checking off, sellers initialing all these things, sellers signing it. It's going in your disclosures. The buyer submits their offer, and with their offer, they sign it and they send it over to you. But no HOA docs were actually handed over to the buyer when the buyer signed this addendum.
So can you still can you get it filled out? But so what I do, I don't add this into my disclosures. I hold this one back.
Got to go with your disclosures.
No, what I'm saying,
page 2?
No, what I'm saying is I do fill this out, like when I'm doing the listing stuff.
Right.
But I don't put it in my MLS disclosure.
Why?
Because I don't want them to.
It's got to. This is the disclosure of how much the HOA fees are, who the HOA is, how often they're paid, whether there's any delinquencies or not. It's still a disclosure to the buyer.
Middle part.
But see, the piece of it and why I'm saying that is because when I used to put it in my disclosure.
I know, they sign
need to
it.
Get it back signed.
So, but your seller should not be signing page 2. So page 1 gets filled out and it goes over with your disclosures. But this is all not initialed because you don't know yet what's coming over in the resale packet or what
Yeah.
you're giving over to the buyers. This all stays uninitialed, no seller signature. So the buyer shouldn't be signing it. If they do, whatever, the buyer agent's an idiot.
Yeah.
But technically, sorry. So I don't mean to offend anybody in this room that has ever done that as a buyer's agent. Now you know. You were not an
No,
idiot.
I didn't.
You just didn't know at that time. But as soon as, notice, this signature, the buyer's signature on here, if you read this, and if anybody, guys, if I can't stress it enough to you, read your paperwork. So many questions and so many things could be fixed and clarified if you guys just slowed down to read the paperwork, right? Because let's read this together. Buyer hereby acknowledges that buyer on the date indicated below has received all of the disclosures contained herein, including attachments as indicated, and that seller has fully complied with the disclosure requirements, right? So if a buyer signs at a time of offer and there's nothing initialed up here and you haven't given them anything, what did they receive? What attachments that were indicated here? And the seller has fully complied with the disclosure requirements.
My computer died. Isn't it another HOA doc that has, the resale notice has all of that information?
No,
It doesn't?
no, I have it. So here it is. This is the HOA notice. All this does is disclose to the buyer their right to receive all of this information.
No, I did that HOA.
And,
But you send that with it as well.
Yeah, that one is.
this one goes over ahead of time because this tells them what they have a right to receive as part of the Maryland Homeowners Association Act. But that's all this tells them. It's just like the notice to buyer and seller, right? For disclosure, notice to buyer and seller tells them what the law is and their rights and responsibilities on each side. Maryland HOA notice just says, this is the law, this is the seller's responsibility and the buyer's rights. This addendum, like the disclosure disclaimer statement where you are doing the law, right? You're giving the information you're required to give. The disclosure and transmittal is where we're giving the information we're required to give.
With the one I was dealing with just then, and all of a sudden they wanted to get it done like this. And we didn't even order a resale package. yet.
Which is fine. Most of the time you have it.
So, when we know we're dealing with something with the HOA, should we just go ahead and order?
It's
Sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Because you need the buyer's information, so it really.
Depends on the HOA or the condo association, the buyer's name. And a lot of times, even if you do need the buyer's name on what they'll tell you, the HOA will tell you when you're ordering that form, they tell you to fill in under buyer's name, TBD. And they say that this form is not specific, but what you want to make sure is if I order this form now and I put TBD, are you going to charge the seller or the buyer an additional fee to update the buyer's name once we have a buyer under contract? Because they'll tell you put in TBD, it doesn't matter at this time. And then when you have the buyer's name, you'll just submit the buyer's, and then they charge you another fee once you have the buyer's name. So you just want to ask questions. You also want to ask. No.
Have them for however long.
It depends on the HOA too. Like one of the questions you can ask is, how long is this resale packet good for? And they may tell, because a lot of times it has to do with the budget, right? Because the budget is part of the resale packet, the approved budget. If we're going into the month of June, if their fiscal year ends June 30th, and they're going to have a brand new budget, they're voting on and approving, and a new budget's going to go into the new resale packet on July 1. If I'm here today listing a property at the end of May, and I order this resale packet, But on July 1, a whole new budget, the packet's gonna change because they're adding in new bylaws that were approved and new budget or whatever, and July 1, the packet's changing. Today's packet that I'm ordering, if we don't go under contract until July 3rd, is not valid. But that might not be the case for all HOAs. So you have to ask, how long is this resale packet valid for? Or is it going to change in any way in the next 30, 60, 90 days? I know, exactly. The other option is to wait to order it. You can wait to order it until you have a buyer under contract. The downside to that, and really, really good listing agents, that resale packet is handed over to the buyers the moment you ratify, the moment you submit that offer, before you even ratify, it's with their disclosures. Because now, how many days does the buyer have into contract to terminate if it's HOA? 5. If it's condo, 7. Whereas if I wait to order the packet until we get a buyer and we go under contract, condo and HOA has 21 days to get me that resale packet. If we have a 30-day contract, if they wait and they take the full 21 days, which some of them will and can, because they're super busy, they take 21 days, the buyer has 5 days. We're now 26 days into a 30-day contract. We're 4 days before closing. This buyer gets cold feet. They can terminate the contract for HOA, right? Yeah.
I will even say, like, this, agree with having that early as you can.
Yeah.
Because I just did one with HomeWise, which is a pretty big
Yeah.
HOA. I told my seller to order you can have it order like express shipped or whatever.
Yeah.
You pay extra, but it comes out sooner. I was like, we want it sooner. It was still delayed 5 days even afterwards. So I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
They should have gotten their money back.
I know, I told her. She's like,
Yeah.
it was $100 to rush it.
Yeah.
And they were still 5 days delayed after that. So now here we go.
Yeah.
Where I'm expecting day 14, it was close to like 20, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And
Anything.
with the condo docs are required by law to be given to the buyer no less than 7 days prior to settlement, because they have to have their 7-day review window. So if you've got, if they can take up to 21 days, this says within 20 calendar days that the seller, so the act requires the seller disclose to you at or before the time of contract or within 20 calendar days of entering into the contract. So if the HOA has 21 days, your addendum says 20 days, day 21 comes and the HOA hasn't, or day 20 comes and the HOA isn't getting you your condo docs or your HOA docs until tomorrow on day 21, who's in default of contract? The seller, because they missed their 20-day deadline to hand over HOA documents. I know it is, but I'm just saying these are the things that you guys have to pay attention to, and that's why ordering them as soon as possible, before, like, as soon as they know they're going to list and sell the house, call. Are they valid only for a certain amount of time? Is it indefinite? Great, order them now. Order them, send them over.
That one, by chance, also was those ones where I said, order it now. And she tried and said, you gotta wait till you actually have that. I have.
Wow. Yeah, and they couldn't put TBD.
I didn't ask.
Yeah.
She was doing it. She was paying for it. So.
Yeah. I know. I hear you.
So condo is actually 15 days.
With it, they have to have it 15 days prior to
Not
closing.
later than 15 days prior to closing.
Ooh, I thought it was 7.
Now, when I.
Okay, then they updated that because it used to be 7, because that window, the 5 days to review or the 7 days to review, a buyer technically cannot waive their right to review condo or HOA docs. They're not supposed to be waiving that right. They're not supposed to be moving on to settlement without having reviewed their HOA or condo docs. But
I make them sign it. Otherwise, if you had 15 days or 7 days, about days anyway.
yeah,
They get it to them, they don't look at it.
So they have 7 days to review and cancel, but they have to receive them up to 15, no later than 15 days before settlement, but yeah. They're not looking at them, but they're signing acknowledging that they received it. Deferred water and sewer, solar panels, we taught a solar panel class, I'm not gonna go over the solar panel addendum. Deferred water and sewer, that is a required seller disclosure also by law. Questions, those are all the addendums that I was gonna go over today.
Oh, that was amazing, thank you.
You're welcome. Tell your friends, tell your friends. Who had a question?
Local addendum for deferred water and sewer charges on it. Do they still have to provide?
No.
water?
You only need the disclosure of deferred water and sewer
If it's not
someplace
disclosed.
in the contract once. So you don't, she asked if the local addendum has a spot to disclose deferred water and sewer, front foot fees, whatever you want to call, whatever they're calling it. And you fill it out on the local addendum, like I think Howard County has it on there, Baltimore County, PG. If the local has it on the form, do you also still need the notice and disclosure of deferred water and sewer addendum? No, you do not need it both. The notice of and disclosure of deferred water and sewer charges, you need if the local addendum doesn't have it on there as a
Well, we've been disclosure. doing it right, just so you know.
Yeah,
I
you
just
only
wanted to
need it
verify
in
real
one
quick.
place. The law just states that the seller must disclose to the buyer if there is a deferred water and sewer assessment, how much and for how much longer and who it gets paid to. Somehow, somewhere. Right? Yeah, it's easiest to use the form. We had an issue, on that note, this was back when it was just Anne Arundel that had the required front foot disclosure or deferred water and sewer disclosure. And one of our agents, who was also an investor and a flipper, bought a property, renovated it, was flipping it and reselling it. And they did not disclose on the Anne Arundel County addendum that there was deferred water and sewer. However, they got lucky because in this community, the deferred water and sewer charge was paid through the HOA as part of your, to the HOA, and was in the HOA resale packet. Buyer tried to sue. They handed them the signed HOA transmittal of docs addendum and the page in the HOA doc resale packet where it was disclosed. And the attorney said, thank you very much. You're done, period. Because it had been disclosed someplace. Now they got lucky. Did they know that it was in there? I don't know. I think they got lucky on that one, but regardless, it had been disclosed in the resale packet. As you stated, the buyers never read the resale packet and they missed it.
But if it hadn't been, then the seller
They-
would have been responsible for paying that
Yep.
front foot fee in a
Yep.
lump sum or just
No.
annually?
Every,
whatever
as it
this-
ran with the, I don't know how that would play out, but
I know it says.
Yeah. yeah, I know, crazy. Well, thank you guys for hanging in there online and in classroom. I know that was a long class.
You were saying, which makes a lot of sense, instead of me pulling out all this information, she'll let the seller do it.
Yep.
So we're clicking on how we're doing it to get it great.
So you're just gonna select, so you're gonna click your mouse in anywhere, like around the document and drag, hold it down and drag it. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is you can actually click in that field. Like if you can see, I just clicked and my cursor's clicking in here. Up here at the top where it says assign to, I'm going to assign it to the seller. And then it changes that field to gray. So it won't let me fill it in now because it's saying it's assigned to the seller. The other way you can do it is by selecting like this whole section, everything that's to be filled out by the seller. I don't know why my computer's acting wonky, and assign it all at one chunk to the seller. And the thing I can't stress enough, guys, is using the importance of using dot loop to send your documents out, not just for signatures, but when you're submitting an offer, when you are sharing the ratified contract with your client, when you're sending a form to anybody, sending it through dot loop, because where the importance comes in, right? Nothing is ever a problem until it's a problem, right? So when it's a problem, it can be a big problem. If you can't document and prove who you sent that document to, what date you sent it to them, how you sent it to them, by just saying, oh, I sent an email, I sent it through email. Great. Do you have read receipt? Does it tell you that they got your email? Do you know if they ever even looked at your email? Did it go into their spam box in their email? I don't know. We have no proof. Dot loop, we have full proof through document history of everybody that signed, edited, shared, opened, viewed, downloaded, anything with that document is all recorded through document history. This has saved our agents' butts when we've had crazy whack clients that try to accuse our agents of forging their signature electronically. Oh, well, I never even saw that. That's not they didn't send that to my email address. I didn't sign that document. I don't know. He signed it. I think he signed it himself and signed my signature on them. I open it up in document history on the signatures. It records your digital stamp, which is your IP address of your computer that signed the document, which we can then prove that the IP address on your computer matches the IP address on this signature, whereas the IP address on my agent's computer is completely different, right? That's how you can prove that stuff. But just by saying, oh, I emailed it to her, or she signed it and I emailed it to her, okay, but you didn't use dot loop. I don't know the date you sent it. I don't know if she ever opened it and viewed it, right? So dot loop is an amazing tool, but you guys just have to use it. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate your time.
It was a
Good. I'm glad. Bye, Drew.
Bye.
Thanks for joining.
You.